Go into late show debate. I recognize the honourable member for Kings North on the late show debate resolution. Be it resolved that the opening of 28 new long-term care beds at Grandview Manor in Berwick signifies the government's commitment to health care in the Annapolis Valley. The honourable member for Kings North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. On the resolution that the opening of these 28 new beds signifies the government's commitment to health care in the Annapolis Valley, the area that I, along with other members, represent. Just a little bit of a background on why this resolution at this present time. Back last year on October 19th, I stated in a talk here in the House on behalf of the Minister of Health that long-term beds would be opening in Annapolis Valley Health Area in District Health Authority 3. And the next day, on behalf of the member for Halifax Needham, the member for Halifax Chebucto, put forward a resolution which claimed that I'd given an incorrect impression on what was happening and that I should stop trying to defend the indefensible and do more research. Well, Mr. Speaker, it wasn't too much later after that the Premier actually announced these beds at a meeting down in Berwick that was hosted by the Annapolis Valley Health District. And he announced 32 new beds on November 20th, 2003. I just want to read a little bit of his speech at that time. He said, I'd like to, at that occasion, I'd like to thank each of you for joining us this morning. Senior care remains one of the top priorities of our government, and one of the best ways to improve care is to improve access. I hear it from seniors in every region of the province. I hear it from families, from doctors, and every professional involved in long-term care. I hear it in the Valley too. I hear it from strong MLAs like Mark Parent and David Morris. I hear it, I agree with it, I believe it, and he announced at that time, Mr. Speaker, 32 new long-term care beds, just as I had mentioned. Yes. Just as I had mentioned. If I don't do it, Bill, no one else will, so I've got to do it. Just as I had mentioned at that in the House on that occasion on October 19th. I didn't speak to correct the honourable member before this time because although they were announced in November, I wanted to see them in operation before I said too much more about them. And I'm pleased to report, Mr. Speaker, that 16 of the beds have been opened already at the Grandview Manor in Berwick, Nova Scotia. And those were opened in May, a few weeks later than we anticipated, but there are always certain delays in construction and things like that. So they were opened basically on time, and there are 14 more new beds that will be opened, I understand, in June. I have to point out that these long-term care beds are an important part of the puzzle of health care in the Annapolis Valley and of doing more for our citizens there. They will help, although with the single entry system, it'll take some time to work through the system, but they will help to provide, to free up spaces of acute beds at the Valley Regional Hospital, which has been a great concern of mine and of my colleagues, David Morris, and we've worked very hard on this issue. As we've been concerned about the use of acute care beds when they could be used by acute care patients and they're used by patients who belong in long-term care beds. And so both of us have been pushing on this issue for a while, and we've been delighted to see this announcement back in November. We're delighted to see in May of this year, just this month, Mr. Speaker, 16 of these beds opening, and delighted to know that more will be opening in June. These aren't the only things that have been happening in terms of health care in the Annapolis Valley. We've received, and I was talking to my honourable colleague the other day about reminiscing about some of the rallies that were held in the Valley, and we've received our share of criticism, and yet, Mr. Speaker, there have been some very positive things that have happened in regard to health care in the Valley. Incremental increases to the budget for District Health Authority 3, now known as Annapolis Valley Health, have been there almost from the start since '99. We've been pushing as elected members for that area for with Bob Mullen, doctors such as Bob Mullen. Bob Mullen, by the way, Mr. Speaker, you'll want to know, will be the next MP for King's Hants, we assume, in a very short time. And he was instrumental, Mr. Speaker. I have to give Bob Mullen credit. He's a family physician in the area, very well respected, the president of one time of the Nova Scotia Medical Society. He actually ran against me for the nomination back in 99, a person with deep roots in the party, and no, I managed to beat him at that time, but he was a good sport. He came on my executive and has been on ever since, and has a tremendous sort of commitment to health reform and to improving health conditions in the Annapolis Valley, and has a lot of respect in that area, and I'm sure we'll do well by him when he goes to Ottawa, as he helps to bring more federal money to the area and help bring some of the needed reforms that will help healthcare in the area. But along with Bob Mullen, along with Mike Riley, along with other people like that, we pushed for funding. Part of the problem when we look back on it was that when the district health authorities were created, the funding for the Western region was allocated on a population basis without taking in the complexity, I think, of procedures that were taking place at the Valley Regional Hospital, and without looking at all the issues. And over time, we've managed to adjust that. And if you look at the increases in the budget for DHA3 and Annapolis Valley Health, you'll find incremental increases to the budget throughout 2 or 3 different years. And so that's one thing that has been happening that's good. It's moved from a straight percentage to a weighted percentage that takes into account some of these things. Another thing that's been good that's happened as a result of this government that came out of many of the issues in the Valley that were raised by various citizens in the Valley and raised by elected members as well, is multi-year funding to provide stability in funding for the District Health Authority. And this benefited District Health Authorities across the province, Mr. Speaker, not just in the Annapolis Valley. But certainly this is one of the things that we were hearing, and one of the things that we presented to the health minister at the time, is that they needed some stability in funding so that there could be adequate planning, so that they would know what increases they had, what budget they would have, so that they could do a better job of planning for providing the health care in the Valley. And as I said, this was instituted, Mr. Speaker, as you know, by this government. There's also and surpluses. Yes, actually there's a surplus, I think, in DHA3 this year, and in other DHAs, I understand. The honourable member has told me, my colleague from Kings South. So it has been successful, these incremental increases, this multi-year funding, etc. There's also been improvements to buildings. We think of improvements to Middleton, to the Middleton site, to Soldiers Memorial, some improvements to Valley Regional, along with a $1 million commitment, part of which was to look at capital needs in the Annapolis Valley Health District and how best to deliver health care in that area. And some of that was used, some of that $1 million was used to help with the emergency unit at Valley Regional Hospital. But there's an ambitious 10-year project that we have, and that was funded by this government, a capital needs study, and we look forward to seeing the results of this capital needs study. And then on top of that, there was the new Fidelis House. Fidelis House, Mr. Speaker, is a house that provides low-cost accommodation for people whose relatives come to the Valley Regional Hospital. Because, Mr. Speaker, not many people know this, but the Valley Regional Hospital is a hospital unlike many others. It's not simply a regional hospital. It's at a level, the complexity of cases, the number of cases it's doing it is at a level where really it stands in comparison to hospitals in Cape Breton Regional Municipality in Sydney, and also hospitals in Halifax. It's at that level. And so there are many people who travel from all over the Western region and beyond whose relatives are undergoing procedures at the Valley Regional Hospital. And in order to help people who might not be able to afford to stay at hotels in the area and accommodations like that, the Fidelis House has low-cost apartments that are offered to these people, much like happens at the Ronald McDonald House here in Halifax. And this is another thing that the government helped out in, not simply the Department of Health, but in others. So there are many, many good things, many things still to do. We need to work on the hospice. My colleague and I have been working on this. We need to work on more health promotion, drug costs, for those who don't have drug care plans. We're working on that, but we need to do more for chronic illnesses. So there are many things we still need to do. But there are many things we've done, and one of the proudest that we've accomplished is the opening of these long-term care beds at Grandview Manor, as I said, back on October 19th, 2003. Thank you.
I now recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank the honourable member for bringing forward this resolution, which gives us an opportunity, I think, to discuss one of the very important issues in the area of healthcare, and that is the importance of providing adequate access to quality healthcare for our seniors in particular. This opportunity really gives us a chance to talk about some of the needs in the very beautiful Annapolis Valley that we are aware of that have gone unaddressed. In the past week or so here on the floor of the House, we have certainly had the opportunity to hear about the fact that this government has failed utterly in showing any interest or initiative with respect to the hard work of the folks who have been working hard for a number of years now to develop a 10-bed end-of-life hospice in the Wolfville area. And I'm surprised that the honourable member failed in his opportunity in this debate to make any reference whatsoever to that hard-working group and the vision that they have shown. And I was hoping that he would offer some insight into whether or not his government are at all interested in supporting the work of that group. And also, he failed to take the opportunity to discuss the Middleton Nursing Home Working Committee as well, who have been working for some time, have put together a very sensible proposal to develop and open and operate a small long-term care facility that would address the needs of seniors in the town of Middleton and the surrounding community. So I will take my time here to talk a little bit about what we in the NDP see as the path ahead now that we have a situation where long-term care, the healthcare component of that, of healthcare for people in long-term care, those costs will now be picked up by the province of Nova Scotia. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate you on the good judgment you showed on behalf of your constituents yesterday when you had an opportunity to express the will of people in your community. That took courage, Mr. Speaker, and everyone here needs to recognize the courage that you showed, and I think the commitment to the people who you represent, and we all know how hard you work to represent those people, Mr. Speaker, so I would be remiss in not taking this opportunity to congratulate you. I think that now that particular issue is out of the way, we can turn our attention to some better planning for the long-term care sector more generally. This is an area where the current act, the Homes for Special Care Act, is extraordinarily out of date, where the standards of care, in fact, are probably in the current act nowhere meet the current conditions of people going into nursing homes. We all know that the level of care in the long-term care sector now that's required for seniors in nursing homes is much greater than it was probably 5 or 10 years ago. And this is because home care has meant that more seniors are able to stay at home longer, along with other things, you know, better pharmaceutical drug plans and a better quality of drug. These kinds of things have allowed many seniors to stay at home longer and to maintain their health for a longer period of time. However, it is at the stage where people's health has declined to the point that they need 24-hour care, and that we need to look at long-term care facilities, and they tend to be facilities that can be quite expensive. And in the province of Nova Scotia, we've had a tendency to look at large facilities, large long-term care facilities, but I think now there's quite a large interest in our province to look at smaller facilities. And rather than looking at expanding existing facilities, there's really a recognition to look at a variety of ways of meeting the needs of seniors. And certainly one of the things that seems to there seems to be some consensus emerging is the need to provide care for seniors closer to where they want to be, which is with their friends and with their families and in the communities where they have been, so that they can maintain as much of their normal routine as possible. And this is probably something that we would all want for ourselves, and it's what we wish for our elders in their twilight years when their health is in decline, as may occur for many of us and probably will occur for a lot of us. So I think that, you know, what I would like to encourage the government to do, and particularly members of the government's backbench, is rather than using these opportunities to crow about whatever incremental improvements may be made in the healthcare system. And certainly I've been to the Granville Manor in Berwick. I've had friends who have worked in that facility. I've known social workers who have done their field placement there. It's a very, very wonderful facility, home for special care facility, where a great deal of care is put into that facility, and certainly the community has been very supportive of Granville Manor over the years that it's been there. And there are many people from the community who volunteer, who provide activities, who really take an interest not only in their family members, but in the interest of all of the residents of that facility. So this is certainly a facility that everybody can acknowledge is of high quality. But I think that while it's important to acknowledge the role of this facility in healthcare, I would love to see the members on the government backbench work to advocate for those gaps in the healthcare delivery system in the Valley, where you have other groups of Valley residents who are working really hard on initiatives that they know will address the healthcare needs of members of their community, such as the end-of-life hospice group, where we had visitors from that organization. I think Dr. Perkins and the very famous artist Alex Colville here last week, and as well the Middleton Nursing Home Working Committee. So these are local initiatives that are driven by people who understand what the local needs are, much more than we would find in the Joseph Howe building, on the 17th floor or whatever, however many stories that floor is, where the senior health bureaucrats. And I know the Department of Health and the government has an initiative they keep alluding to that will be a consultation process around the movement of long-term care in our province. And I'm hoping that it will be truly a process that will be a participatory process that will bring on board these kinds of groups and will respond quickly to the needs of local communities and provide the adequate services and support that our seniors are entitled to, Mr. Speaker. And with that, I'll take my place. Thank you.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise in my place and take part in this debate. I think clearly what we have placed before us, formed a resolution, is really maybe a dispute between two members. Clearly the honourable member from Kings North feels the honourable member should do more research and vice versa. Mr. Speaker, quite frankly, the issues surrounding long-term care, indeed the availability of programs for seniors so they can remain in their own homes longer, deserve to be debated directly and not through some sort of he said, she said resolution. However, Mr. Speaker, I welcome the opportunity to address this issue this evening. I had the opportunity to recently tour Grandview Manor, and certainly the addition of the 16 beds are a wonderful addition to the local community, and certainly a restoration project that was extremely well done, meeting modern code and really state-of-the-art with good size rooms. During the course of the tour, I learned that there were 16 new level 2 nursing home beds, not assisted living beds, but nursing home beds. The resolution says, whereas the reality is that the 16 beds opening at Grandview Manor are private pay, unsubsidized assisted living beds and not nursing home beds at all. Well, this is not the reality. They are indeed subsidized, fully nursing home beds. What I also learned, of course, was that they are already filled. However, what may not be known, Mr. Speaker, is that many of those new beds are occupied with residents from around the province. That is the reality. And this tells us something, that there is a province-wide shortage of nursing home beds that this government failed to plan for until it was far too late. It also tells us that the pressures currently being experienced by the Annapolis Valley District Health Authority may not necessarily be alleviated with the addition of these beds. And this the rosy picture painted by the member from Kings North about the good things that have been done, well, I would ask him to once again sit down with Dr. Robertson, Chief of Staff, and he will point out many deficiencies in the current delivery of health care in the Valley. I also learned during the course of the tour that there are 14 more Level 2 subsidized nursing home beds to be opened sometime in June. I have to ask the honourable member from Kings North whether or not it will be residents of the Valley who will be able to access these beds, or will they be from other parts of the province? And this truly is the big concern now faced by the DHA and certainly the residents of the Valley, who had very, very high hopes, great expectations that in fact the acute care bed situation would improve as more of the long-term care patients moved out of the Valley Regional. And we know that now from the first 16 beds is indeed not the case. I have to ask, clearly, Mr. Speaker, the government has failed to plan to appropriately to meet the needs of our aging population province-wide and indeed throughout the Annapolis Valley. And this is one of the demographics that we are struggling with on many fronts, and that is we do have the oldest average age population in the province, and certainly that continues to actually deepen or worsen, if you wish, because it is a strong retirement haven. But what I also learned, Mr. Speaker, is that the Premier promised last November that there will be 32 more nursing home beds, yet what I have learned on my tour is that there will only be 30. And while we're grateful for the 30 beds, The problem is far more acute than arguing about the types of beds or the number of beds. It's about the lack of planning that our caucus has expressed concern about time and time again. And sadly, Mr. Speaker, we don't see any more evidence in place that the passage of last evening's budget will address the serious impact our acute care system is experiencing as a result of a lack of planning. Last evening's budget does nothing to ensure that seniors have the proper resources and support to remain in their own homes as opposed to going into nursing homes in the first place. And if there was one reality that I experienced as I went to 3,000 or 4,000 homes during the campaign of last summer, was that in the Annapolis Valley, and you knock on many doors in the rural area, they are 100 to 200 years old, and there are fourth and fifth and sixth generation family now living in those homes, and the seniors want to stay in their homes. That's one of the great realities, and I think our party is right on the mark with different ways of trying to keep seniors in their homes. Small supports very often. If we had to have some increases, for example, in the home adaptation program. So last evening's budget does not even guarantee, if a community is fortunate enough to get additional nursing home beds, that the district that has been fortunate enough to get beds will feel some relief from the pressures currently placed on the acute care system, and that certainly is the case that we have had pointed out by Dr. Robertson, and that in a very, very recent statement. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is the health budget, while increased, has not met the needs of our population. Failure to invest in home care has led to pressures on the long-term care sector. A failure to adequately plan to meet the needs of the long-term care sector has applied undue pressure on our hospitals. This government has failed miserably to invest strategically in the areas of health care that would alleviate these pressures. This is one of the reasons why last evening's budget was a disappointment to our caucus. Mr. Speaker, I don't believe it's my role to stand here, finger point, which honourable member was or was not correct with the facts. The facts are quite clear. A lack of vision for health care has harmed this province. We will not progress until there is some acknowledgement by government that the healthcare system is interconnected and that investments in a plan are required in all areas of health care, not just a select few. And again, this is one of perhaps the great realities that was very apparent as our caucus went around the province with the wait times round table. And that is, you can't have single initiatives and expect great results. It is a complex and very much a connected system. In the area of alleviating some of the pressure on the acute care beds, I think the hospice plan is another one that I would like to raise and address, and I think it would be one of the most progressive and foresighted moves, as the honourable member from Kings North, who has been an advocate and a great supporter of this initiative, that if our province were to join forces with individuals in the community of the Annapolis Valley who have that kind of foresight and thoughtfulness to provide a service that we do not have available now and that many people are wishing to have in place as part of that of a dignified way for more people to spend their last days. And in regards to, again, nursing homes, we know the Middleton situation does have a little bit of a new concern. However, I know that there are a couple of other proposals that will be presented in very, very short time to deal with that situation as well. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I guess perhaps we do have a few more moments, and I would like to go back and emphasize the fact that while the province welcomes the 30 beds, it would have been of great relief to the health authority in District 3 to have had those beds dedicated to being a valve for patients in long-term care at Valley Regional. And we now know that the first 16 has clearly failed to address that, and we hope that perhaps the next 14 can have a more dedicated effort. Perhaps that is one of the pitfalls of the single entry system. I do thank you for the opportunity to speak in late debate.
Thank you. The time has elapsed for the late show debate, and we will now adjourn.